As usual, the messages every week have something to say about our lives. They're so amazing. And this message, which Mauricio Quintero from El Salvador was kind enough to send to us, he entitled it, "Is God Hidden from Us Today?" What an important question. And now, he said, prior to writing this message for Shabbat, there was a verse in the letter to the Hebrews that constantly came to his mind. It says, God, having spoken at many times and in many ways at another time. This was in Hebrews 1, verse 1. Now, this led him to meditate on how often God speaks to us in many ways and at various times. But we don't grasp it because we simply can't wrap our brains around it in terms of our own paradigms. We all have paradigms about our lives, and sometimes they're very hard to break. For this reason, the prophet Isaiah in chapter 55:8, he expressed, "My thoughts are not your thoughts." How can we possibly understand the eternal while we are stuck in this finite body? How can we understand the divinity, when we're in this physical body, which is unlimited? No. How can we understand divinity in this physical body, the unlimited, by the limited through time and space? For example, hasn't the world only recently discovered what already existed by the James Webb Space Telescope launched in 2021? And later in 2023, published details of the galaxy still unknown. What this type of telescope did was to show us a clearer image of what is, what was, and what exists in the universe, something that is imperceptible to our eyes, but is there. The book of Shemot begins with the story of a people who are developing in slavery. Is God in the midst of suffering? Was he there in the midst of their suffering? Was he there when the murderer of the children who were thrown in the Nile River? Or when he reduced his people to being brick builders and they went through days of sheer exhaustion? The book of Shemot ends with the following verses. And the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of the eternal filled the tabernacle. Moses could not enter the Mishkan because the cloud rested on it, and the glory of the eternal filled the Mishkan, the tabernacle. The Likutei Sichot, volume 3 says, at the end of Parashat Pekudei, the Torah refers to the cloud that was over the Mishkan. The cloud alludes to concealment, in this case, the concealment of divinity, since the cloud did not allow Moshe's access to the Ochel Moed. As the scripture points out, Moel could not enter the Ochel Moed because of the cloud that rested on it. So we see that divinity was apparently hidden at the beginning and at the end of this book. The divinity was apparently hidden at the beginning and at the end of the book. However, in each event that happened, no matter how painful or amazing it may be, the eternal was there. As Tehillim 121:4 says, behold, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. We sang that this morning in our service. Hinei lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Israel. He is always present, even though he does not seem to be. After almost a month of absence from our community life, and long work days that have brought physical consequences to my body, fatigue to my mind, and wear and tear on my interpersonal relationships, I have realized that in the midst of these situations, the Eternal has been with me, even when it's difficult for me to see him. In illness, stress, anguish, impatience, toxic relationships, or adverse situations. Often, in order to get us to react, now this is important, often, in order to get us to react, God doesn't send us flowers or beautiful verses. Rather, he orchestrates situations where he speaks to us in a variety of ways so that we will react and move toward teshuvah, turning back to God. Beautiful. Scholars like Mitchell wrote about the word olam, stating, some scholars conjecture that the word olam is related to the Hebrew root aleph lamed mem, meaning to hide. From this perspective, the biblical and historical meaning olam reflects the hidden, the unknown, past, and future. Other scholars surmise that it's related to the Akkadian word ulanu, which meant to be distant, that is, the distant past or future. The true etymology of the word may still be hidden. Is it possible that God physically placed us on this material plane and in this created world where he is continually hidden and distant? On many occasions, man also hides from him. We read that Adam and Eve hid from the face of the Eternal when they ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in Genesis 3:8. Then later, Cain, after murdering his brother, hid, saying, "Here, you take me away from the face of the earth, and I must hide from your face." Genesis 14:4. Concealment we can also understand as the rupture of the relationship between the divine and the human, produced by pain and disappointment, as Stephen Arnoff mentions in his article, The Hidden Face of God. That's interesting. It is the rupture of the relationship between the divine and the human, which is produced by our pain and disappointment. Also in this world, Rabbi Ishai Hariri says, if a person wants to live with joy and tranquility in his life, he has to know that when someone does something bad to him and receives harm, he cannot take it personally or get angry with this person, because it was not he or she who attacked you, but the Eternal who disguised himself as that person. This person can be your wife, your boss, a business relation, a neighbor, a partner, the law, a politician, etc. And the Eternal visits them with the aim of changing our behavior. It's all about changing ourselves so that the manifestation of divinity surrounds us and manifests itself in our Mishkan. On the other hand, in connection with the previous idea, the portion speaks about the construction of the tabernacle, the Mishkan, which comes from the word Shekhin, that is related to the Shekhinah, the divine presence, but also with Shechen, a neighbor, giving us an idea that the divine manifestation will take place in the midst of the community. It's necessary to create this physical space. Right now, it's on Zoom, that became the spiritual and relationship center of the Israelites in the desert. They had the Mishkan there. We used to have our Mishkan, but now we gather together. Now we read in 39:42 to 43, according to all that the Eternal had commanded Moses, so the sons of Israel did all the work. And Moses saw all the work, and behold, they did it. As the Eternal had ordered, so they had done it, as Moses blessed them. I think that this is the crucial point of this portion, because in order for the divine presence to manifest itself, community is vital. If not, how will we see God's goodness towards us? How will we practice the mitzvot and the mishpatim? How will we show justice and the immense love of the eternal towards one another? That is why God said at the very beginning, it is not good for man to be alone. Finally, regarding the materials with which the utensils of the Mishkan were built, the Lubavitcher Rebbe says, gold represents the purity and the perfection of the tzaddik. The silver represents the Baal Tshuva, the returned or the penitent, the great longing for closeness to the Almighty, a longing far more powerful than any tzaddik, because it is a longing for things far, far away, in the distance. Kesef, the Hebrew word for silver, also means longing. Then there's copper, the lowest of the metals, represents the good works of those who have sinned. The Eternal's home on earth is complete only when it includes all three. Now, by connecting all these three previous ideas, in the world we can decide if we want the divine presence to manifest or not. For it to manifest, community life is necessary to emulate the materials of the Mishkan, purity, longing for closeness to God, and our good works, our good deeds. Rabbi Dovber of Mesherich said to a crying child, listen, this is really good. Why are you crying, he asked. The boy replied that he and a friend had been playing hide and seek, but his friend had run off to have some fun, leaving him huddled in his hiding place, hoping in vain that they would find him. Rabbi Dovber raised his eyes to heaven and exclaimed, "You too have hidden your face from us just because you want us to look for you. But your children have grown tired of the game and have fled." How does God speak to us these days? Let us take the words of Echa, Lamentations 3:42-43, and it reminds me of what Rabbi used to say in Psalm 39. Let us search and test our ways in order to turn back to God. Let us lift up our hearts and our hands to our God in heaven. He wants to manifest himself as broad daylight, but do we allow him to do that? Shabbat Shalom.